Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Right, so today we're going to be doing computer networks and web technologies, CSEC server section 2. All right. Right, so today's objectives for lesson 1 would be to formulate a definition of what is a computer network, briefly explain how computer networks are used in everyday life, and evaluate situations where different types of networks would be needed. All right? Okay, so to start us off, I want you to think about these two questions that I have here. First of all, imagine we had no way to communicate using networks or the internet. So, for example, you might imagine there was no internet. Yeah, right? How do you think life would be? And secondly, how have computer networks made our life simpler? So let's look at the first one. So imagine there were no networks at all. There were no computer networks. There's nothing called the internet. How do you think life would be?
But they'll have more socialization because...
All right, so...
It depends.
It depends. Depends on what?
On the person, because the person would like to socialize with people because they're bored, or they'll just be bored.
So do you think that, because I mean, there was a time that we did not have the internet, right? So do you think there are positives to not having the internet and not having the network, right? What kind of positives? Let me hear.
I would just say better socialization, but it will be boring for them because they never knew what it was like to have internet with TV. So they would just think, oh, this is just how it is.
All right.
But nowadays,
so it's like okay, you don't know it, so you wouldn't miss it, kind of thing.
But now that we know it, now that we know what to do.
But then a lot of people argue that socialization in person is much better than over networks. Right? It is. Yeah. But what are some of the drawbacks that we would experience now if we did not have this thing called the internet?
Harder communication.
That's all.
Information would be less readily accessible.
Right, very good. Information. Yeah, and the access to information. Yes.
So now, for example, with the pandemic, let's do school online. You're not be able to meet in person. We'll be back at we're kind of be behind, right? As we will,
right.
In our education.
Right. So one of the things, and we're going to look at that in a little while. Yes.
Oh, in addition to less information, it also have drawback in medicine because of it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're right. You realize certain forms of technology would be way behind, right? Yes.
You won't be able to have like a lot of, in reference to what you said as well, access to hearing about how other people who don't really live similar to you go about life.
Exactly. And one of the things I wanted to point out is look at, for example, news. How long does it take news to get to us? So, right, the minute, okay, let's take, for example, what's happening in Russia, with Russia and Ukraine and whatnot. The minute that started happening, as a matter of fact, even before it happened, right, we started to see and get information about it. Yeah? And that was only possible through networks. Yeah? Social media, yes, but social media is part of what? Right, it's part of a network. Yeah? So information and the access to information, it's much easier to get to us, and it gets to us a lot faster. Yeah? So that, I think, would be one of the main losses that we would have and that we would experience if we did not have networks. Jaden talked about the pandemic and how the pandemic had affected us as students.
Yep.
Right? I want you to think about the last pandemic that we had was approximately 100 years ago. Right? And think about Back then, obviously, no internet, no networks, no nothing. What do you think? What you think would have been? How it would have been back then?
Marbles, stones.
Playing with the pebbles on the ground. But would students then have been able to engage in learning? No. Well, I shouldn't say learning, yeah? Because
they have books at home and their parents like you have to pick up a damn button.
right, so exactly. Right? Yes, Kyle. Right, so actually people actually going, right, and things like that. So you realize that, coming to the second part of it now, second question, obviously networks, and by extension technology, has made our life simpler.
Yes.
How?
So now you can just go on YouTube and listen to music. You can go on websites and watch movies, etc.
Alright, so entertainment is one thing. Socialization is another thing.
Yes, sir. Somewhere
Sites like Khan Academy, My Maths, and etc. You can use that for studying outside of school.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, access to information. Information is readily available to us whenever and wherever we wanted it. All right. Right. So having said that, I want us to look at this video that gives us a little introduction into what are computer networks.
A computer network is a set of computers or electronic devices connected together. A computer, printer, scanner, fax machines or a file server can be a part of the network. The connection between these devices can be done with cables, wires or wireless. The purpose of having computer network is to send and receive data stored in other devices over the network. These devices are often referred as nodes. There are 5 basic components of a computer network: sender, receiver, transmission media, message, protocol. Sender is the device that has the data and needs to send the data to other device connected to the network. A receiver is the device which is expecting the data from other device on the network. In order to transfer data from one device to another device, we need a transmission media such as wires, cables, etc. Message is the data or information which needs to be transferred from one device to another device over a computer network. A protocol is a set of rules that are agreed by both sender and receiver. Without a protocol, 2 devices cannot communicate with each other. For example, HTTP and HTTPS are the 2 protocols used by web browsers. SMTP protocol is used by email services connected to the internet. The FTP is the standard network protocol used for the transfer of computer files on a computer network. Computer network transfer resources such as documents, pictures, videos among devices. Nowadays we use this computer network for entertainment, shopping, and business. Advantages of computer network. Computers in the network.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that there gave us a little insight into what is a computer network. But are networks, or does the term network only refer to computers? No. Do networks occur anywhere else? Among people. Yeah? You have a network, you could form a network. Yeah? Where else have we seen networks before? Other than dealing with computers? A network of wires. Okay. You ever heard of a network of roads? Network of bridges.
That's all I'm thinking about.
Huh?
Network of veins.
Veins.
In leaves.
Network of
Veins.
veins, yes, in nature, right? Even in our own bodies, the veins and arteries actually form a network, yeah? What do all of those things have in common?
Transport something.
One, they transport something. Yeah? What's up?
It's a connection of things.
Very good. They actually connect. So the network of roads connects what? Well, other roads, yes, but they all connect what? What? Well, other roads, yes, but they all connect what? Roads. Roads. They connect destinations, they connect cities, they connect towns. That's all? Yeah? Right? The network of veins and arteries in our body, what do they connect? Very good, they connect organs. So it's the same thing that you're seeing here with computer networks, that they too connect. But what do they connect? They connect devices, right? So although the name says computer network, we will realize from the video a while ago that we connect more than just computers. So who can name for me 2 other devices that you can connect to a computer network? Yes? Server. Well, which are computers? Printers. Fax machines. Speakers. Right. So we can connect all of these devices to a network. All right? So, based on all of that now, what is a computer network? What could we label it as? What could we say that it is? So a computer network is an interconnection of what? Devices across a physical medium. Because we saw that in the video, right? There must be something connecting one to the other. And that medium, it could be wired, or the medium can be wireless. Right? And wired and wireless medium, we'll get into that after. Right. Alright, so I want us to look at this particular scenario. So we're going to look at the application, a real world application of computer networks. So I want you to look at this situation. I'll read it together with you. And then we're going to get into small groups, and we're going to discuss what is at the bottom here. But let's read it first of all. Okay, so I'll read. Right, so the situation we're looking at is, of course, the most recent thing, the COVID-19 pandemic and education. On April 1st, 2020, schools and higher learning institutions globally were closed in 185 countries, affecting over 1.5 billion learners. This accounts for 89.4% of total enrolled learners, that is worldwide, according to UNESCO 2020. In our local context, March 13, 2020 marked a red letter day in the history of education in Trinidad and Tobago. Classes at all educational institutions, from early childhood centers for education to universities, were suspended until further notice. To minimize the loss of learning time, emergency remote learning became our mode of operation. And of course, everybody, we're all too familiar with that. What happened next, right? Right, so I want you to throw your minds back to when this whole thing started. So I want you to look back and point out how were computer networks instrumental in keeping the process of teaching and learning going even when physical classes were suspended. Yeah? So, what you're going to do, you're going to get into groups. Let's see, groups of 4. Right? Groups of 4. One person, listen to the instructions first. One person in the group is going to be the person to write, and you're going to jot down for me, right, each group at least 3 ways in which networks were responsible for keeping that process of teaching and learning going, even when we could not have met face to face. All right? We have 5 minutes for that activity, so let's get started. Break yourselves up, groups of 4. Let's get the activity going.
Maybe for example,
Yeah.
good for like Zoom.
Just like Teams, Zoom, etc.
Remember, no people.
3 ways in which computer networks were able to keep the process of teaching and learning going. But mention
It's had some real sense.
that we use. Right, so Teams, and Moodle, use Google Meets.
Right. Like, so that's for classes, then I had exams, and then communication with teachers, and which would be the same thing. What's our next one?
Well, the process of teaching and learning. Right?
We were given access to a digital platform called Microsoft Office 365, and that enabled us to continue to compile our information.
Right. Okay, so we all look back to that time, right? Not too long ago, only 2 years ago. And how are computer networks instrumental in keeping the process of teaching and learning going, even when we could not attend physical classes? So let me hear from some groups. Yes?
Teachers being able to hold live classes via Zoom, Teams, and Google Meet.
Very good. So teachers being able to hold live classes via Teams and all the different platforms we use, right? You all remember in the start what happened? We didn't have a standard. So some people want Zoom. Right. So and you know the whole thing, right? After 40 minutes. Right. And people were using, what else were you using?
Google Meet.
Google Meets. I know some classes were using Google Meets. And then of course, well, after a while we standardized and we all switched to Teams. Yeah. All right, so that was one thing. So teachers could have held live classes, right? Because of networks, we could stream video, we could stream audio, yeah? All right, so yes, what else?
The access of digital platforms such as Office 365 for the easy sharing and organization of information or assignments.
That is excellent. Repeat that.
Free access of digital platforms such as Office 365 for the easy sharing and organization of information and assignments.
Very good. We know that one of the advantages of networks is that it allows us to do what? Share data, share information. And we saw that happening where we could have simply, I could have posted an assignment to you. Everybody's able to access the assignment, do it. You post back the answers, right? So we could share information on the various platforms. Okay? What else? Let me get one from, yeah.
So, we have for assignments and assessments, we use school formative quizzes and forms.
Excellent point. Assessment. We use a lot of online assessment. Not so?
Yes.
So we use things like what? Formative. Quizzes. Edmodo. Forms. Microsoft Forms. Right? Alright, so let's look at what are some of the other things that I'm sure you may have had, but nobody said it. So one, the presence and use of the internet. We used the internet to communicate. Not so?
Yes.
Everything we used was web-based. Teams, Zoom, all the assessment platforms you all were talking about. Right? Email, yes. We were emailing, we were WhatsApping, not so? All right. Devices that could have connected to the internet, we had those. Phones, tablets, laptops, desktops, and they were made available, right, to us to be able to use. So the connectivity was there. Use of home devices. Everybody was using the router in the house. Not so? Everybody was using the router in the house. Some people might have been using the neighbor one too. Yeah? No, no. Right. Good. Software platforms that allow, well, this is the one that I think most groups talked about. Software platforms that allow communication by teachers and students. So we have Teams, Google Classroom, Zoom, right? Use of social media. We use social media. We use WhatsApp. That's all? Yeah, classes form WhatsApp groups and so on, and they were communicating. And, very important, I want you to make note of this one. Use of telecommunications infrastructure to carry out our day-to-day activities. You see, because if it wasn't for this, well, obviously we would not have been able to do much. Yeah? So we used our current telecom infrastructure in order to carry out our day-to-day activities. Right, ladies? Good. So we saw where we could use the internet at various levels on different points. We spoke about using the internet for research purposes. That's all. We spoke about using the internet for what? Assessments. Communication. Very good. Sharing of information. All right? Okay. So, just a recap quickly. What is a computer network? Somebody tell me. Yes?
It's a network connecting devices to a physical media.
Good. Name 3 hardware devices that can communicate on a network.
Printer, fax machine, phone, laptop.
Alright, well, yeah, so you want more than 3 there, right? Printers, laptops, fax machines, phones, speakers. What are 3 uses of computer networks? So hold on. 1. Entertainment. 2. Entertainment. 2. Communication. 3. Data collection. Information gathering. All those things. Can you give me 2 advantages based on everything that we talked about? Can you give me 2 advantages of computer networks? Okay, 1.
Being able to share information amongst different persons, not just one.
All right, so being able to share information, but it's not just to share information, because I could share information with you by sending you a letter. Ah, that's the point. Very good. So we could share information faster. 2, next advantage.
And also faster access to information.
Very good. Faster, quicker access to information. Yeah? Now, don't know if anybody considered this. What are 2 disadvantages of networks?
Lack of social interaction.
Very good. I wouldn't say exactly a lack of social interaction, because you do interact, you know, but it's in a different way. So there may be a decrease of face-to-face interaction, right? Which in itself may have many different problems associated with it. Yes? Excellent one. The presence now of viruses, right, to your own personal computer systems. The possibility of hacking. Anybody can give me an incident that happened recently with that? Huh? Everybody, right. Massey, what happened with Massey on the 29th of April, right? That their systems were actually infected with something called ransomware. Yeah? And their systems were hacked, which caused, well, you all know what it caused, right? Anybody tried to go into a Massey store on the 29th? No, if you did, all Massey stores were shut down. They had to close. What was happening is that the prices, the price list information on their servers, the hack changed the prices. Yeah. Huh? It was a whole mess of things. So lower, higher, it didn't matter, but everything was wrong on the system. So the system corrupted their item file, right? And particularly the prices in the item file, right? So imagine that system was hacked, right? And obviously that hack, well, it was shown that it came from outside of Trinidad. Yeah, the hack came from outside of Trinidad. So they hacked that, and remember, they shut down for an entire day. Anybody wants to take a guess as to the loss Massey would have incurred if they shut down for one day? How much? That's probably for one store. That's probably for one store. You're talking about 31 Massey stores. Right? So it was in the order of tens of millions of dollars. Right? So, big, ladies, big disadvantage of networks is the possibility of all the things we have, all the security breaches, yeah? Hacking is obviously one, identity theft, all these different nice things that we will talk about later on. All right? Okay, so we have looked at what are computer networks, right? In our next session, we're going to look at types of networks. Yeah? What are the different types of networks that you have operating on a system? Now, I'm going to send to you all via Teams a link to Answer Garden. There'll be a question there that I need you to answer, right? And if you can do that for me by this afternoon, please. All right? So when you go home, check your Teams. The link will be there to Answer Garden. Answer the question that is asked, right? And we will meet back again.